once per month. We've had the pleasure of having Tony White speak to us for our inaugural bill, for our inaugural talk, and he spoke about, have you understood what I said? The whole, that missing piece that he sees in the Western education paradigm, which is focused on talking and lecturing and knowledge owning and knowledge wielding, that he was reminding us about a very important ideal that you've been taught by your elders about the importance of that missing piece in communication, right? The listening piece. And then our second event was with Linda Bristol, who came with some people from her community of Sioux First Nation, as well as including their project manager, Andrew Moore. And Andrew was going to speak to us a bit about their solar project out there, but it turned into Linda speaking at length about some of her experiences. Greg, what would you say was really the focus of that talk?
Well, family. It was family and communication with the family, and how she talked about support systems.
Yeah.
She talked about support systems with, I think you've all heard, like, well, if you haven't, what happens in the community when there's a loss, everyone gets together and contributes a little bit of money to support it. And that was, you know, that's a big, I think that's a big support to any family, and I think she displayed it.
Yeah, she spoke eloquently too about, I think really the core of her talk was about needing to understand where people are coming from when you're going to enter into a relationship with somebody. You really need to know how your histories interconnect, and that you're looking at somebody whose path has been quite different from your own, for instance. A lot of, I personally have been interested in reading about the history of Indigenous settler relations in Canada and North America, but it's not something we teach in our schools. It's not something that is out there just for the public to know. It's not common knowledge. And we learned a lot about the impact on her family of Bill C, is it 36?
31.
31, and how she has less status now because of, was it a remarriage?
Her first marriage.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, lots of good stuff came up, and it came up in a way that I was really hoping would come up in our Tse Tsa Watle talk. So there's perhaps a focus to the talk, but in the spirit of being moved by whatever it is that gives us our good ideas to talk about, to allow the conversation to just travel where it needs to travel to. And today's a perfect example of that. I'm not sure what Bert and Levi and Charles are doing today, or why they're not here, and I hope they're okay. We'll check in on them after we're done our session today. But they were going to come and talk about a number of things. I tried to get Bert to define a topic for me, and he said, no, I need to sit and just, you know, wait for the words to come. I was hoping he could tell us what it was like to be a chief in his community for 40 years, and to hear from Levina, who likes to be called Lee, about her focus on language reclamation. And I was hoping to introduce them to Wendy because Beecher Bay First Nation has expressed some interest in a digital storytelling project, much like the kind you've been running in 2 communities now.
Not primarily in Sayle, but it's 3 communities involved. So Sayle, Copperchin, and Souk.
Right, right. And I thought that would be an opportunity because Greg and I have visited Bert and Levina's home twice now, and it's clear that they are struggling with how to pass on traditional knowledge to their children and grandchildren in an age where everybody's distracted by iPods and shopping and all the things that teenagers do. And their 2 of their grandchildren were in the room when I was telling them about the projects, and Damien and Taylor looked quite interested, didn't they? They loved the idea of actually being the people who would go and get their elders' stories using cool Macintosh equipment. And so I was hoping to do that, but we can do that another time. Maybe what we could do today, Greg, do you want to take it from here and guide us through the
Yeah, if I could. Let's do an introduction here, starting from here, and we'll go around just for everybody's. Maybe starting.
Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome. If it's easier, we won't look at you.
Hello, I'm Darlene Joseph. I come from the Songhees community, and the department I work for, I should say, I work here at Lawrence University, and the department I work for is University of Life.
Like,
I'm BJ Ibe, and I am an instructional designer with CTET, Center for Teaching and Educational Technology. Might just contribute that I did have the pleasure of teaching for a year at the bottom of the Grand Canyon with the Havasupai folks, and that was very treasured experience for me.
My name is Mary Bernard, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Research, and we have a lot of Aboriginal and First Nation research at Rolo's, both in terms of students who pass through there, as well as current students, as well as faculty members as well. My former brother-in-law, who passed away, also spent time at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Maybe I can check to see times for you.
Sure.
I'm Leslie King. I'm very new to Royal Roads. Well, new and old to Royal Roads. I've been here as an employee for about 2 months. 2 months or so. Wow, amazing. I'm in the School of Environment and Sustainability. And I'm also, I was telling Bill, adopted into the Nishka, and my name is Suksaksakshlapun, which means wandering whale.
Thank you.
My name is Wendy Drummond. I'm with Indigenous Development here at Rural Roads, which is out of the Center for Applied Leadership and Management. I've been with Rural Roads for going on 10 years now, and I've probably moved through just about every department that's there at one point. My work is primarily in community, working with engagement of youth in the use of technology to draw in community and draw in them back into a learning environment. So this digital story piece and the use of the technology comes in, is how to draw them into a learning environment, and the rest of the community to support that from a cultural perspective. So.
Thank you.
I'm Garth Schmallenberg. I'm here in two capacities. One, I came here as a student in the master's program for human security and peace building. And I'm also executive director for a group called Partners for Prosperity. And what we're doing is creating a framework for learning about social and economic development. And so we have an online forum and so on that we've worked with Virginia to set up. So for Tse Tsa Watle on our website, and we have some other groups that are starting to develop there. And we've had, the organization's been around for about 10 years, and we've done projects overseas and some as well on the island here. But we're starting to work more with the communities and the social development groups in the community, and trying to learn from them and also have them share their learning with each other to build that framework. We're developing also some online learning tools as well. So we've got Moodle. Yeah, so.
Very good.
I am Nicholas DeWaylapan, or Nicholas Peter for my English name. I am a 19-year-old Cowichan University student entering my third year of 3 different bachelors. And I guess you could say I'm kind of ambitious. I work for Partners for Prosperity as a founder of a Cowichan Youth Guild, which is hopefully going to encourage youth to take their skills and learn new skills and crafts to help themselves, their families, and the global community at large. Basically spreading the love of ambition. And yes, I have, been in quite a few groups similar to this one. I give my support where it's needed or where it's wanted, and yeah, try not to do anything halfway.
My name is Louise McMurray, and I live and work in the Duncan area. And I'm actually wear a number of hats there, but one of the things that I've been charged to do is bring the film industry to the Cowichan region. And that took me on a path where we created a society called the SIFA Society. which really the intent was to open the doors for opportunities for the First Nations community to get involved in film and digital arts and media. And so we do a lot of program with the youth, so I'm kind of interested in what you're doing. But that road has really led us to do a lot of community work, and so I'm the director of the Cowichan Aboriginal Film Festival, which runs every year. We do a lot of workshops around just creating awareness of just the two cultures that exist side by side there. And we have, over the last couple of years, had the opportunity to do some really interesting bridge building through arts. And so that is an area that is really becoming of interest to me. And I'm actually trying to pursue, or will pursue, a course that Simon Fraser's offering about creating social change through art. And so we're hoping to do another major project this year. We've done 2 over the last 2 years, as well as the Aboriginal Film Festival, as well as really working with a lot of youth in our region and bringing them in to film and digital arts and media workshops, and those are just taking off. So we work within the school district as well as with Cowichan Tribes as probably our closest connection, but Penelakut is as well. So that's good on my story.
I'm Sherry Bird, and I teach here at Royal Roads. I teach communication. I teach people writing and public speaking. I grew up in Campbell River, where our communities are very intertwined. Grew up with my friends and family. And my real passion that kind of underlies my work as a communication teacher and coach is I love story. And I really love how our stories interconnect. I'm particularly interested in mythology and primitive mythologies and finding those places where, as human beings, we do have common beginnings, I think, in stories, and also uncommon beginnings, but I really have a passion for story. I also have a passion for helping people to express themselves authentically. So I work as an editor, I work as a writing coach, I work as a teacher, but I really like to help people get out of the way of expressing themselves using their own voices. And I love being in places where I get to hear people's stories and get to hear people expressing themselves in their own voices. So this is a good place to be.
I'm Colleen Hawkins, and I work with Greg and Mary in the Office of Research. And Greg sits on our Research Ethics Board, and I help Greg in his work as well. Hi, Tracy and Greg. And Greg was telling me he's just back from Browning, Manitoba, with the Blackfoot Nation.
Montana.
Or sorry, yeah. Yeah. And I think I mentioned at the last Tse Tsa Watle, my grandpa used to get into trouble because as a little boy he learned how to speak Blackfoot. So his parents took him away from there and sent him to Manitoba to be educated in French and English. So he didn't learn to speak Blackfoot after all. But I enjoyed learning some chopping from Greg, which is so great.
My name is Leah Newman, and I'm also very new to Royal Roads. Just started this week with the International Programs Office. And before that, I was at
Allow me to welcome you.
But it's a great move for me. I always thought that VIU and their international education before this. So happy to be here.
I think we've had a second sound from VIU
Oh, really?
to Royal Roads, yes.
Leslie was the vice president academic at VIU.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think there's a movement now.
Well,
Yeah.
I work with Teresa now,
Yeah,
and
Oh,
very
was that
briefly at
Teresa?
VIU.
Yeah.
It's a movement away
Yeah,
from VIU.
exactly.
For our benefit, sorry.
I always forget to introduce myself, but so I'm Virginia McHenry, here for a year. I was hired to be program head for the BA in Professional Communication on Campus program in the School of Communication and Culture. And truth be told, I think there's two reasons why I wanted to do this project. One is I adore Greg. I liked him the minute I met him. All the people in the research office were such down-to-earth, welcoming people when I came here. And I'd been away from academic life for 5 years, and I felt like my research trail was cold, and I got really energized just from hanging out in the office there. And while I was in Brantford for 8 years, 4 of which involved teaching at the Laurier Brantford campus and also up in Kitchener-Waterloo. We were a very young campus in Brantford, and one of the first things we were starting was an Indigenous Studies degree. And there were a lot of controversies about what we were doing there and about who we were hiring, and I wasn't really a part of that, but I was a part of having a number of mature Six Nations students in my classrooms. 2 of them became lifelong friends, and I'm very close to Lynn Lickers, non-Ndonga woman, who taught me a lot about Haudenosaunee culture and tried to demystify what I'd been reading in anthropology journals, and it gave me a human woman's view into what Haudenosaunee ways were, how the principles of life had survived, colonization, residential schools, even the Christianization of their community, and that you could see sort of enduring principles in the most rustic cabin with no running water and the richest mansion. That if there were good people living, if there were people in those homes living with good mind and goodwill, that they were still practicing so-called primitive ancient practices in fairly modern ways. And it was a real awakening for me to meet Lynn. She wasn't an intellectual, and she still isn't, but there was another man on that from Six Nations, Michael Dogstader, who got his PhD at Cornell in educational technologies, I believe. And he taught at McGill for a while, and he had a lot to do with programming for the early days of APTN. And he taught a critical anthropology course that I sat in on. He allowed me to sit in on his class, which it's hard to do if you're a prof, to let another prof sit in here the whole time. And he finally taught me something that had been missing in my cultural studies education. And I realized what I was really interested in was doing an anthropology of my own culture. Because since I was a little girl, I grew up in Calgary, which is a pretty racist town and pretty sexist town and all those things. And I always felt like I didn't belong, and I carried a huge sadness and, dare I say, rage against my own ways, my own culture. And I realized, having met some of the people at Six Nations who are truly walking the talk, walking around with rage. Oh, I also saw a Clear Cut movie, which taught me that anger can be really, this is one of the things we have to put on our website. Here's a good movie to watch. Linda Bristol suggested 6 movies we see, and that's another one I think people should see. But I realized that just walking around being critical and negative about Western culture, for lack of a better word, wasn't very useful. And then I started reading some of the authors that had inspired me when I was really a reader girl all my life, and then when I became an intellectual, I got access to all that scholarship. And we do have strands and strains in the Western tradition that are very closely aligned with what I hear from the elders I'm meeting in this community and that I met in Six Nations. That these ideas of being good to each other, those were your parting words in your talk. The importance of being good to each other. Hi, Lee.
Hi.
So that's
great.
largely.
We thought it was going to be at 1.
It's okay. Everything's good.
Well, we didn't have a parking space.
Oh, okay. What's the deal with that right now?
I think we'll sort that.
Okay,
While
could
we're
you?
doing that, can you run over the 6 movies and the 7?
So we'll go down.
Yeah. And Lee and Bert, you have a handicap sticker?
What's that?
Do you have a handicap sticker in your car?
Yes, we do.
They can park right by the research office.
Oh, you put them
Yeah.
up and down. Okay. Colleen, they can park in here, or any of those spots. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So anyway, I just...
This is for Lawina.
probably the more crucial piece, that actually getting to know people has been the real breakthrough in my learning about my own culture and about First Nations culture. So that's what I'm here. Over to you.
My name is Bill White. I'm from the Nanaimo originally. I have 2 Indian names, Antebak Kadimat from my mother's side of the family, Antebak Kasali from my father's side of the family, Kwagyo. Kwagyo for me. I'm very, very blessed that way. I was the Aboriginal Liaison Officer at the University of Victoria for 13 years. So I've had many contacts with academics, curriculum development, community work, students. I have been very lucky in my life to have worked with old people since the mid-70s, even when I was at UVic. We accelerated our work with So'elo elders at UVic, including, of course, the most eminent Dr. Sam Frank's father, late father, and late Agnes Pierre. We worked with extensively. No. One of the things that originally my degree was going to be in anthropology. In my 3rd year, I changed because I was not interested in physical anthropology. What UVic school was then physical. I shifted to history. The reason I went back to school was because I needed to. I was heavily influenced by Dr. Barbara Lane, the anthropologist who did her field work in Cowichan, 1953, comparative and analytic study of Northwest Coast religion. Barbara Lane, I asked her once at a dinner party, I said, what I learned in terms of academics is that academics then in the 50s and the 60s, University of British Columbia, University of Victoria, Santa Cruz University, were not interested in Indians. Universities who were interested in Indians tend to be the United States. And Barbara Lane created a major shift for studying in our region. I asked her at a dinner party, of course through Kim, not because I knew them personally, but because of Kim, our good friend, Kim. I asked her, I said, how come you decided to study our people here when no other academics were interested at that time? And she said, because I'm Jewish and I needed to know from her own experience how it was that we survived through all of this time. It was wonderful. She did the field work for the landmark fishing rights issue in Washington State called the Bolt Decision, in which the tribes won 50% through interviewing elders access to the fish. At that time, even our own organizations weren't interviewing elders. Our own organizations were heavily influenced by the acculturative processes of government and education and accountability. So our own organizations were not interviewing old people, reinforcing the traditions, until the mid-70s when the National Indian Brotherhood published its policy paper, Indian Control of Indian Education. So anyway, I was heavily influenced at that time. I didn't know very much. Because I also learned that in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, of course we went to public school, the perception of Indians at the time was that you are dirty, you are dark, you are stupid, you can't read, you can't write, we have to help you with supplementary programs, we have to clean you up, we have to feed you lunches. And that was so different than my grandparents and our relatives. The old people that we grew up with, our relatives always said to us, gee, we really love you, we really, and they hugged us, they kissed us. And we grew up with that support as children. When we went to school, it was entirely different. And we didn't know that time. It was amazing. I'm filling in time before they come. It was amazing because, when we went to public school, we didn't understand, I made the point on my presentation about participation. Here at this and other universities, you are marked for research, for writing, and you are marked for participation, which is like the grade 3. It's an upgrading somewhat of the grade 3 or 4. Can you put up your hand? Can you? And they really do. You are really graded for participation. It's on your. It's part of your grading for your course. We didn't understand how come white kids could talk so much. We didn't understand how come they could do this so easily. When we were with our parents, our grandparents, we were allowed to be with the older people, but we had to be quiet and listen. The emphasis was on listening. The great gift of, I'm going to move along quickly, the great gift of our cultures is that respect for the old, sharing, cooperation, and about 20 values are heavily reinforced within our own ritual and social institutions to this day. And so we're very lucky. I'm going to stop now.
Welcome. Perfect timing. Thank you. Yeah, Lee's going to have some things to say.
Yeah, we're not sure we believe you about the listening stuff.
It's amazing because, you know, when you come to this setting, of course, we're an intermediary group, and so we have to do some of that. So it'll come, we have to learn to tone that down. My sisters especially talk to me a lot about, they know more about this than I do, about values.
Anyway, welcome to, mind if I call you Chief Bird Charles?
No, it's
Beaver Dick.
and has been.
Yes, yes. I just want to make sure I follow the protocol. And his wife, Mrs. Levine Charles, you like to be called Lee, is that correct? Yes. And they have come to us from Stiano, close, Beecher Bay First Nation. Greg and I have been in conversation with them over the last couple of months while trying to figure out a way to get them in here to share some of their knowledge and their wisdom with us, and to just become hopefully part of an ongoing group of people who want to forge and maintain some good relations about things like education and a positive relationship between railroads and the community. We just, in a way, your timing was perfect today because we've never had time before to actually go around the circle and talk a little bit about ourselves and why we're here. And so we've just completed doing that. We're ready now for anything you'd like to contribute to our day today. We have about an hour left, an hour and a half.
We do, it's 10 to 1.
10 to 1. We have an hour and 10 minutes. We can do whatever we like. And I can also get you a tea or a coffee if you'd like to have. Okay. Greg, would you like to say a few words? Or do you want to just let it go?
No, I think we're prepared to listen to Bert and Lee because I think they have so much to offer, and I think a lot of it came out when we were over there. They prepared some coffee and some sweets for us when we were there. That was a really good visit. And with the grandchildren, the children and the grandchildren. And some of those things I think they brought out were really, it was nice to hear that, so we'd like to hear some of that. Like,
Nicholas together. Nicholas together.
Okay. Yeah, well, like you heard, my name is Bert Charles. That's my bard name. That's what they call our bard name. My real name is Humphrey Miller. That was given to me passed down to me by my grandmother and my mother's side of the family. Actually, Rick's father and my mother were first cousins. So, and the name itself comes from the Tsawwassen people, Tsawwassen community. I guess that's where my grandmother and my mom was from. Anyway, I guess I'd just like to talk a little bit about the life I lived right from being a young boy to, and you know, we've had our problems in our days, and I live out in Beecher Bay, and there's public schools all around. Well, actually, there's 2 or 3 of them nearby. But I had to go to school in the Songhees Reserve, what is called the Indian Day School, because those days we weren't allowed in public schools, you know, because of who we are. So I used to ride with my dad. He worked up Lamson Street in the coal yard. So I used to have to ride with him in the morning to get to school and ride with him after when he gets off work all the way back to Beecher Bay. And so I have a grade 4 education because that's all I could get. But even with that, I managed to become a member of the council, elected into the chief's position when I was 21. And I did a lot of traveling out throughout Canada with the elected people. And I learned a lot on my own. I learned how to run a business. And we built a marina out there. But you know, those things were brought to me by my grandmother. You know, she couldn't speak English, but she made sure that whatever I did as best as I possibly could and made it work. And all my life I've been doing that, working, doing things that were new to me. And I was raised by my grandmother because my mother passed away when I was, I think, 5 months old. So I was raised by my grandmother. She couldn't speak English. And her teachings were very powerful. Everything I did, I had to do with the blessing of the elders around those days. And there were lots of them. Those were the most important people in our lives. And they still are yet, even at my age. I sit down with other elders and I listen and talk because I've forgotten a lot of the teachings I got as a young boy, young man growing up, only because I was put into a system where the government tried to take away my language, my identity, my traditions. And you know, going through all that as a young man, young boy, I got so I didn't like who I was for the longest time. I didn't like the color of my skin because I was in trouble because of who I am. And we struggled, and I have a lot of respect for my elders that have gone before me. How strong they were to hang on to our traditions, our language, and kept practicing it even though they were threatened to be put in jail if they got caught practicing our traditional dances or speaking our language. They're threatened with jail, but they kept it up and hung on to it. And I am proud of who I am now because of my elders. I got my strength after a while, after thinking about it, talking to elders. I managed to get my strength back, my belief on who I am and who I should be in life and how I should be sitting with my grandchildren talking to them about the right road to walk in their lives. And like I say, we struggled in our young days. But because of that, I have determination now to do what's right among everyone that's around me. I made some bad mistakes in my young days, but that's the past now. I'm just working with my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandchildren. I've been with the missus here now for 54 years. We have 19 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren. So we raised a population in our reservation anyway. So we're stronger people now because we have a bigger population. Anyway, I've lived the best I possibly could, and I had good teachers. My uncle, Sam, my cousin's mother, he was one of my teachers. There were three of them. My Uncle Sam, my Uncle Dick Underwood from Resenage, and my Uncle Herman Henry from Colby. And they always stuck together in the big house when there's gatherings. So I used to call my three stooges every time I saw them. I'd go and sit with them and get them to talk to me and learn things from them. And they were knowledgeable, very knowledgeable in our traditional ways, our teachings, and our. I lost my language. My wife teaches. And St. Jonathan Hulkerman dialect, but mine was the Sliam dialect. Coast sounds people, but dialects are different. Sliam is from the Colin people, which you probably know is in Washington State, because our people lived on both sides of there was no border, but we lived on the side, and part of the family lives on the other side. So when my dad, my uncles passed away, I had nobody to speak to in our dialect. So I understand St. Jonathan Hulkerman, but I don't speak it too well. So my kids, my grandkids, and other young people in our reservation there is learning from my wife here. She's a teacher out there in our language, dialect, St. Jonathan and Hulkerman, because that's the dialect is used a lot in our big houses. All the speakers speak those two dialects, and like I say, I understand it, but I can't speak it too well. So I do my best in teaching my kids. But I would like to thank my cousin for inviting me to this circle. This is a traditional way of working together, talking together in a circle. More people throughout North America. Like I say, I travel a lot in my day, different tribes, Crees, Ojibways, and their teachings are all similar. Their languages are a lot different, but the teachings are all the same. And the roads we should be taking in our lives, and the teachings we should be passing on to our younger people, and they're all the same throughout Canada, the United States. My grandmother used to always say that all the native people throughout North America were our brothers and sisters. The other people, like the Mexicans and Cubans, are our cousins. That's what my grandmother used to always say to me. But anyway, like I say, we practice the same teachings throughout North America, but things are done a little different. We have our longhouse, our big house we call it. We have our siawan. That's our way of healing ourselves and looking after ourselves. The others have probably sweat lodges, powwows, things like that. So, but they all go the same way to the Creator, back to the Creator. But like I was saying, you know, I got away from all of that in my young days because of who I was and or who I am. Because the Department of Indian Affairs took me out of a day school, Songhees Indian Day School, and put me into one in Victoria that was run by what we call brothers. And you know, if I even said hi to somebody in my language, and I did once, a friend of mine from the South Preserve there, Tom Sampson, he got there, and one morning I welcomed him in the morning by saying hi to him in my language. And one of the non-native boys heard me and ran up and told the principal. And, you know, I was brought up to the principal's office at 9:15 in the morning. Stood in the corner, principal's office, from 9:15 in the morning till 6:10 in the evening. No bathroom, no lunch, no nothing. Just because I said hello in my language to a friend of mine. But that was not only to do with the school itself, it was a federal government. We tried to assimilate us. And back then, that's why I say I'm proud of my elders for being strong and hanging on to what's theirs. So we try now to walk the great roads in our lives, and I am a proud man now of who I am. I have a lot of respect for my people. I have a lot of respect for all people. So I guess that's all I can offer right now, and I want to thank everyone for sitting there listening to me, and I'll use my hands.
LaFleur, you want to share something with us? There was a lot of things, you know, I just want to reflect back on, we talked about Tse Tsa Watle, and we kept talking about the leadership. That's that, about territory. All those things were very interesting, I think, to hear. You add to it,
My name is Spotnot, and my English name is Lavina Charles. I come from the Stiano First Nation. And we've had the honor of Greg and Virginia coming down to the house. And it was always nice having them there. I can't add too much to what Bert has said, but there is a lot for all of us to learn. There's no ending to learning. And I, like Bert, struggled. I was taught by nuns, and we weren't allowed to use our language. And I've always had long hair, and my great-grandmother took great care of it. Every morning when I was little, she'd comb it and braid it. And not too long after I started school, the nun cut my hair. Cut it, gave me bangs here, straight down here, and straight across. And she threw my hair away. And that's a no-no. It's the First Nation people. My grandmother was irate. She went right up there and she got after the nuns. And they just told her that we can't have anyone here with long hair like that because of bugs and nits infestation with Native people. My grandmother said my granddaughter did not have any of that, and you had no right to do that. You should have asked. And she explained to the nun that you don't throw hair away, you save it. So a lot of it is used in our culture and our traditions. My spouse here, when he was allowed to have a hair hat, I have 4 daughters that grew their hair real long. And at the time I had long hair too. Every one of us got a haircut, so he could have a hair hat. And he still has that today. Because it's important that we don't do anything that could harm us. You do your nails, you don't just throw them in a garbage or anything, because you're not garbage. Your hair, you don't cut your hair and throw it away. Anything you do with your body, you have to take care of it. I was taught as a young girl to always respect my elders, which I did throughout my life, and in turn was respected by elders. I regret a lot of the stuff that I did as a younger girl because of my loss of identity. I, like my husband, wasn't too happy about who I was because I lived in a mixed up growing up. Because my great-grandmother and great-grandfather taught me all the good stuff. And then the nuns told me not to listen to what was going on in our tradition and our culture because it was a sin. If anybody found out, the nuns ever found out we were at one of our religious ceremonies or longhouse ceremonies, the nun found out, she forced us to go to confession. So it was kind of hard going to school and being told that being an Indian was wrong, and then going home and listening to my great-grandparents telling us how we are proud and strong people and should follow our hearts, not our anger. As a result of all this happening to so many of our people, there was a lot of alcoholism, and there still is. They're codependents of the residential. I know there are a lot of people that are really happy that the residentials were closed, because there are a lot of people my age that don't know their language at all, because they were taken away from their homes, lived right at the residential school, and were told never to practice any of their culture, traditions, or their language. But to this day, I'm really glad that my great-grandparents raised me, because now I know my language. I know 2 dialects. I'm teaching it. And also, like Britt, I am proud of who I am. And I hope to continue teaching. Although it would be kind of nice to retire. But the money is good. Haifa.
Just want to thank you for making your way down here. We had a search party out there today. It made me stand out, and you were talking about standing in the corner there. I was standing outside all morning. I was scared of her, you know. My antenna's out, you know.
He got the parking passes, so he had to stand up there.
I was drumming out there so you knew I was here. I left my drum out there.
Well, we thought it was 1 o'clock.
That's okay. We're not complaining, we're just telling you. We're telling you tall stories. But, you know, when you look at that, I don't think too many people hear about the difficulties. But I think when you look at the strength of the people, I think that's what has come out. We appreciate at least us a little, the elders, to look at what they've provided to the communities. To look at how it's displayed, it's not really displayed that often. So when we look at the effort of your being on the council for 42 years, you know, I haven't really heard too many other individuals taking on that challenge and responsibility. So I guess we wanted to acknowledge it, and acknowledge all that you put in there, and the support that you directed to Kamchimalak. You know, it's always the chief, but I think we know that the support comes from, you know, like the wife and the children. Not very often talked about it, and we could see the support that was directed. There was many times he talked about Hawaii when he was out there, like, you know, the family was always there. We invited them. And, you know, today we miss those people, you know, Hawaii. It's getting a little bit easier to talk about it, you know, but I think like the elders have left us a lot. We talked about the events, we talked about sporting events. And, oh, before I forget, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you an invitation for the 23rd and 24th of July, which is this weekend. And I believe that there's a canoe races out in Sartla. That's our community, that's out in Redwood Bay. I think we have some people there that might want to come down. 2 minutes away.
I guess so. Is that this weekend?
Yeah. This
Oh,
weekend.
wow.
Yeah, and I think it's been posted on the calendar, so I think it's their calendar of events. And we just, you know, that's kind of our, one of the faults that we have is really not promoting or advertising. And it's always, what we talked about here is always by word of mouth. And I think, you know, the Hamidians call it moccasin telegraph. So, we do it on occasion, so we announce that and give you an invitation. But to look at those kind of activities, I think it's important, you know, when you talk about Tse Tsa Watle working together, and you talk about the support of the elders, which came out today, support of the family, the grandchildren. The 19 grandchildren? 10 great-grandchildren?
And one on the way.
And one on the way. Well, when you look at the beauty, I guess, and you talk about population and strength, I think that's where it all lies. I think the idea of unity, you talk about unity, I think that's just family. Talking about the teaching, and it doesn't mean this place you shared this morning. And I can appreciate, I can remember, you know, there's oftentimes like I gotta appreciate the fact that you said you've forgotten some of us. And we do. When we come in to do what we have to do in different places, locations. Then what's Malak? Meeting is the Malak. Then what's Dayton meeting is the Salil. Then what's Navy? And when you look at that, it reminds you of a lot of those things. You talk about growing up and the lives that we've experienced. The idea of what's happening this weekend, canoe races. Oh yeah, it's canoe races, but there's a lot of visitation. There's a lot of people come together. Some of the older people like we don't have too many. How do people look after the canoe races? Remembering the times that we were there, some 40 years ago, we used to get on those canoes. And the discipline that went along with that, the training. Bert Humkimla, he talked about how strict the elders were. I think some of them still are. Some of them still are. When you look at the canoe races, you go there and see them, they're racing your dog. They race to go back to communities and they train again for another 5 days and then come back and pull hard for 2 days and then go back Monday and even pull harder, train harder. When you smoke, you know, you got to quit smoking. If you drink, you got to quit smoking. If you're married, you got to sleep by yourself. If there's things that you like to eat, you can't eat that. You know, the diet is very strict. And then you'll run, you know, like every night. You look at the discipline of that, you know, the teaching that comes from the elders, you know, it's just there. It's something that we take, believe, and utilize. So that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. It was and it still is. The canoe races, they have the men, the women, the youth, and they have I think they might have some salmon barbecue, clam chowder and stuff. And for people that like their hot dogs, they're there too. So like everything is there, and I think it's good. And you look at I guess the effort that goes into it. I think we talk about Tse Tsa Watle, like there's families that get involved and support, like the different committees that we're looking after the admissions, we're looking after for the race and the course and the support crews and the consignment bands and the grounds crews. That's all done with something that we just take for granted. I think we should start sharing. It's not just done by one person or two. So when you look at the idea of the teaching that comes from the elders, that's still there, it's still happening. So we appreciate the fact that you made it here, and I'm sure that we'd like to have you back. We'd like to have you back and visit. We have Wild Bill, who came down from lived in Cowlton. And your name is?
Stuwela.
Duwelahun? Nick Howard. Minnesota?
Sila? I do not know her name. Evelyn George. Evelyn Tommy. What's the one? Clayton Peter Colsheeman.
Colsheeman. Oh, Minnesota.
Related to Abner, Tommy?
Pardon?
Related to Abner, Tommy?
I think so. She's my Anna Sipa comes from Malachi.
Oh, yeah.
Your father is Abby?
No, my father is Clayton.
Clayton?
She's my uncle.
Clayton? Oh. You know, this is, you know, when you talk like this is how they, you know, the older people were, you know, when they talk about family that comes in here, you talk about it. You start talking about the family tree, and then that's how you're being taught. That's the communication that we look at. You've just seen it. That's the communication we talk about. Here's the family tree, the knowledge, the history. We talk about end of a college and not will be same it's all together. And you look at the representation, Laquaman here, Songhees as well. So you look at the representation that you have here, and then people, the older people, and they didn't talk much, but when they did, they shared information. Like Bill would say, we didn't know why those Cretans, those white people talked so much. And they had all the answers. Couldn't talk so much. Couldn't talk so much. And it is. I'm glad you said that, because it never really came to mind. I was just there. I let them provide all the answers. I let them do all the talking. And particularly our pride is that they had a lot of questions. And who was that? That was Colleen. I guess it's a little bit of a comparison, and I think you can see why now. There's a little bit of feeling of intimidation that we have when we're in the presence of people from outside the community. I think the idea of the skill development, knowledge, you've all talked about that, and the storytelling. Are you speaking out?
I am
speaking
out.
So the whole idea of what's happening is there, and I can really appreciate the stories that Kimberly shared. You know, because it's a difficult process. It's a difficult process to go through that, and it's still there. You know, from Kimberly, it's still there. You know, and I think it's evident, and I think it's affected many different people, you know, on both sides. So when you look at the strength, I think you talked about it, you showed a display of strength here. I think we really appreciate it. And to continue on for the younger people that are in education now to carry it on. And that's another part of the teaching, that he was given something. We're all given something. I think that's something that you can take back to your place of learning, your family, a reminder of some of the things and more to come. And then that cycle is still there. So we really appreciate your attendance. Come down and share with us what you have. And I know you have more to offer, but I think you were thinking, oh, we're late. Are they going to be annoyed with us? No, not.
I'd just like to say thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you next spring. Wendy needs to go, but Wendy is the woman I was telling you about who developed the digital storytelling project in Sayo. Right, and she has told me that there's some interest in Beecher Bay.
I spoke with, and thank you very much for your time here, and I apologize to have to leave earlier than your time. The project that I work with Sayo First Nation right now included members from both Pakwachin and Sioux First Nation, and from Sioux First Nation they said that they had conversations with members of the community that might be interested in doing a similar digital story piece in your community. And I'd love to spend some time sharing about what that experience was like with them, perhaps at a time that's more convenient for you, and I'm not having to rush through it. So it's really about engaging individuals in the community, not just youth, but all members who are interested in learning about the tools that help to capture both traditional and contemporary story, both in English as well as their own language. So that's the guidance was to provide the technology and the tools, and then draw in the expertise, including community, to help build individual stories or group stories. And if there is an interest, I'd love to share at some time to find out more about how we may be able to do something like that, either in Beecher Bay or in a collective group like we did in Tse.
Okay. And is there a presentation of those digital stories next week?
There is the first of the presentations. So we've had 12 community members participate over 10 weeks. The first 3 are stepping up to do a presentation during lunch hour next week, on the Tuesday the 26th. It's their first time, so they're very excited and at the same time very nervous, so it's a fairly new project for them. If you are able to be here, that would be wonderful. It's Tuesday, July 26th from 12 till 1 in the LIC 326.
Yeah, so just down below us here in this building.
And we'll be posting and sharing more information about the Digital Story Project and how we wish to build on that project over the next couple of weeks. And I would love to, through Virginia and Greg, I will share that information to you. And if there's a way that I can provide more information or answer any questions, I'll be happy to.
So we could either invite you here, if you can come next week to see those presentations, and if not, we would be happy to come and visit you. Yeah, that's fine, and we're happy to come and visit again if that's okay.
Well, that'd be great.
And talk in a more leisurely way. Really great talk. So great to go visit it.
But we won't be home.
We'll bring Bill along.
It will be away 27th?
28th.
Birthday?
28th, 29th.
Yeah, there's a powwow going on in Sarkit. And we're going to be camping there from Thursday to Sunday. And Bert's birthday is going to be done at the powwow. Yeah, it's the 28th when it starts. Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to be 74?
39.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be 74.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be at that celebration. Oh, that's it. Is that the, what is that date of that?
28th, 29th, and 30th, or the...
Thursday, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah.
Is that also an open event?
Well, that is the powwow. It's an open event.
So canoe races are the week before, or this coming weekend, and then powwow?
And the powwow, no, they're all open, so you can come down, you know, like the canoe races are Saturday and Sunday, but you know, you might want to go down there and have a visit, have a coffee, a tea or something, and watch a few races. You don't have to stay. And then the powwow, of course, like, you know, some people go, and they stay for the 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts on Friday, but we go down there to get a good camping spot.
Right. Are you taking some of the kids, or grandkids?
I'm taking one of my great-grandchildren, and my daughter, Buffy, she's taking two. One of my grandchildren, one of my great-grandchildren, she's taking.
Yeah, I think that's the last, the races that are happening here on Vancouver Island. So we give you that invitation to go out.
Have they had one in culture?
Canoe races?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Did they? Oh,
Because we were gonna go, oh no, Wendy's left, because, you know, Wendy's down in the couch and Jason's left. And her view was the whole thing. We were gonna go up there and we missed. So then it passed. So anyway, like that's good. To let you know, just to let you know about the canoe race and the powwow. Powwow's a lot of fun. They have like some good dances and good speakers, good MCs, and they got a display of sales and things like that.
Good food?
Food is good, yeah. Food is great.
Indian tacos?
Indian tacos. And like 2 minutes away from there, there's a Chinese restaurant right by the ferry.
It's curry chicken. Traditional curry chicken.
You gotta go to famous. I love curry chicken.
Does anybody have any questions for our guests here today, or any comments on what we've been doing here today? I personally am interested in knowing a bit more about how you go about teaching the language, how you set up your lessons, and whether it's through books or through...
I composed a dictionary of my own, and with simple words. The first page is all the simple words, like no, and come here, and sit down, and thank you, and the greeting words. And then when I finish that page, I go to the, like, page 1 coincides with page 9, and that's where I put the first words into sentences. And Bert was one that took me out of Pearson College. I worked there for 9 years as a housekeeper. And he asked me to quit my job there and start teaching the language. which was approved. His funding was approved and all that before he asked me to quit my job. And I've been doing this since '96. But it's not, I'm a little disappointed, all the kids down that way. Some of them are not consistent. Some have taken it and then dropped out, and the only ones that are doing okay are my grandchildren, because we teach them all the time. My youngest daughter, Buffy, she said she wants to start because her kids talk in our language. And she tells them, she says, "Speak English so I know what you're saying."
That would be handy if you're
No?
What's Buffy's real name?
Dion Leandre. Dion Leandre.
That's the first time I hear
Is that the lady whose house we accidentally went to?
No. I think that was Nadine.
Okay.
That was Ducky's place.
She started when she was first born, and I got her, the doctors gave me her, she was wrinkling her face up, making all kinds of faces, so I named her Funny Face. And then the song came out, Funny Face.
Oh.
And she got 7 records of that, 45, from the family. And then I had my granddaughter, Jennifer. She couldn't say Funny Face, she says Buffface. So we shortened Buffface into Buffy. So she became Buffy. And she's named after, Buffy is named after a hockey player, Marcel Dion. When I was in the hospital, he was partying with Marcel Dion. And when they were drinking, Marcel said, "Well, if you have a boy, name him Marcel. If it's a girl, name her Dion." So she's Dion.
That's the first time I hear that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll hear you and us saying Buffy.
Same with Peanut. Auntie Teresa, late Auntie Teresa says, "What is Peanut's really name?" And everyone knows her by Peanut. But her real name is Laverna.
What's Bert's nickname?
Never mind.
That's your nickname.
Yeah. He's the original.
I have to know that Bertha has very good stories about our grade. I don't hear all of them in English. But,
Yeah, I lived up there for a few years.
One thing we really loved hearing from you was just hearing this generation of people reminisce about what, despite the difficulties, despite residential school, you're talking about just going out and playing, swimming all day and grabbing wild carrots and fruit off the trees and having fun in places that are kind of disappearing or don't exist anymore, plants that are harder to find. You're talking about seafood, right? You live right on the water. And what did you used to be able to get out of that water that you can't now?
Mussels.
No, we sure did all that.
We still got everything. Sea urchins.
Oh, we were talking about sea urchins, right? And eating them raw.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren still plugged into that bounty, that do you have barbecues? Do you have parties where go and fish and bring all your stuff home? Like, how's it done?
We used to when we had our campouts, but when Bert lost the elections as chief, the new chief shut down the camp out. He doesn't do that anymore. But we used to have that. The girls would go picking berries, because like the camp out would be like now, and there's a lot of berries. And they'd go out and pick all the berries, and then bring it home bring it to our campsite, smash them up and fix them up, and that would be dessert. And the boys used to go down the beach and get rock stickers and mussels and whatever they could get, and then bring it home, and the ladies would cook it. And then we just lived like that. Just eat all that, and there was no problem with food.
Did you garden as well?
No. It's pretty hard to garden it out that way because everything is, what's it called, hard pack?
Hard pan, yeah.
It's just about that much soil, and the rest is just clay and hard.
But a way longer season than other parts of Canada, so you have access to greens and food for more of the year, right?
Yeah. And we always have words down at the Chan Marina for anybody that don't want to fish it. We save it for us.
Oh,
We get some.
Our next visit, I guess. We were just talking about a friend of mine, we were over to Bush on the weekend, and a friend of mine over there said he just had a feast of that. And that's a real delicacy. It's our age, I guess. Fish, he was saying he had a feast of that. I thought, oh my goodness, it's been a long time since I had that. I think if you've ever even had it or looked at it, fish, the best part is the cheeks. The cheeks you had. I think Bertie likes the challah.
Yeah, it's couple.
Oh, couple. But you know, I think when you look at the food and I guess that's all part of the health too. You know, the berries.
And the swimming all day.
And the swimming all day.
Well, you know, our people never had any wasting. There's no wasting here. Everything. Everything.
Why do you think the campout was closed? Do you think it's had an impact on life there?
Well, they started using it for the monies that are funded. They started using for tribal journeys.
Okay.
But the kids really miss it. Every time we have a meeting there, they talk about that. Why can't we have it again? Because when they were over there in the camp out, there was no radios or phones, any listening devices out there, nothing. They just had to listen to, like what's happening here, storytelling, and to tell them what kind of experience we had as young people and how we felt about our elders. Because there was storytelling in the evening. And they were taken out on walks with some of the elders, with Skip and me, to teach them medicines and edible stuff in the woods. And they were being taught beadwork, and the girls were being taught, or whoever wanted to take beadwork would take it, and then there was a lot of stuff going on over there. And they talk about that. They really miss it. They say, why can't we have it again? And we don't have a say, so.
So it's largely a funding issue.
Yeah. The funding, like I said, it goes to tribal journeys. They're still getting it now, I hear, but it's going to tribal journeys. And Bert, while he was chief, also bought hockey sticks and hockey pucks so they could have road hockey, you know, playing on roads and all that. And he was trying to get a lot of kids into fastball. And that's when my son Mike was doing it then. And all that stopped. There's really nothing going on in our community now. Nothing. Nothing for the students, nothing for the youth, just nothing. And we're quite disappointed about it, but we can't really seem to do anything because the chief won't listen to the community. He just does his own thing. And it's really hard for everyone that lives down there.
How often do elections happen for chiefs?
It'll be happening in October.
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
But he has a way of getting in there. This is his third term that he's been in there, and he's getting these votes from the off-reserve members. When Bert ran from the last elections, the people on the reserve, he got 38 votes, and Russell got 54 from off-reserve members. And we don't like that because some of these people that are voting, which is most of them, have never lived on reserve. They don't know anything about reserve, what's happening down there or what's going on or anything. They're voting. And it's mostly the chief and consulate relatives that are off reserve. But if it was just to be for the community, they would vote for someone that can really do something for the reserve rather than what's happening now. It's not good. It really is not good. Anybody went down there to take a look at it and you knew who the chief was and their families. The chief and consul's families and all that who live in the reserve. They got beautiful, beautiful homes. They have 2 cars apiece. And every time there's monies that come in for repairs, for housing, it goes to them. And we know this is happening, but we can't do anything about it. Department of Indian Affairs won't do anything. Nobody will. I mean, Russ goes on cruises. He goes to Disneyland 2 or 3 times a year. A lot of the money that's supposed to be going to the people are just going into their pockets. And we know what's happening. But it's all because we're into what they call land management. That protects them. And a lot of our people have phoned INAC, have phoned Ottawa, phoned all over, wrote letters. They just turn around and tell us, speak to your chief and your congress. They're the problem. They tell us to talk to them. We try to set up meetings, and they won't. We do have meetings between the band members that are living there, but when the chief finds out about it, he says it's illegal. It's illegal meetings.
What do you think will happen if you get self-governance? How will that be?
I have no idea.
I think the idea of self-governance is a long ways off. I guess you can see what politics, that kind of politics has done in the community. It's true right across the country. But I think the idea of, when I talk about factionalism, it's there. But I think what the reality of what keeps us going is what Bert and we're just sharing with us again, is that if nothing can be done, it's just a continuation of supporting yourselves and families. I think it was really displayed when we went out there. I mean, Virginia and I will be out there to take you and invite you back. Because we appreciated to visit, and, with your son, Michael, and the grandchildren. And I think when we talk about it, I think the support of the families is a powerful medicine in the community. It's a powerful medicine to continue on. I think the idea of doing away with alcohol, drugs and such, I think that's a battle, that's a challenge. I think that's always in motion. And I think the prime example of people that hard supported here. We appreciate your coming down here. And I agree, like, you know, politics is not ours, but you know, it's there. And the effects of it, the benefits are there. The idea of working together, I think that's what we're talking about here. How do we work together? How do we support? You know, how do we support each other? How do we develop an activity to support those young people that are sitting in the sidelines and want to do something and belong? I think we appreciate what you're saying, and for that, I think we can look at, I guess, the idea of what's happening in the different areas to attend, to have them take part in it. Because I know that, you know, the majority of the people out there can sing. We've tried to get them to sing. The National Aboriginal Day, we had a celebration here, and I think there was a funeral service that day. We couldn't get the drum out here, so we understood that. I think there's always little obstacles that are on the way. But I guess what I'm saying is I really appreciate your efforts. I really appreciate your efforts and your dedication to the family and the community. And to look at the history you're talking about from Hima, to us, you know, that Indian name, where it comes from. And I think the idea of wearing it proudly, I think that's something that's not really brought up too often. It's just done. I think that those names are earned. Well, I guess what I'm saying is I commend you both for what you're doing, and to look at the idea of support, direct help. 52 years, 54? 54 years of marriage, you know, you don't hear that too often. It didn't seem like that long time, that long we were playing ball.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we're done with it.
Yeah, that was a while ago we were playing ball, and you look at that, 54 years of marriage. You know, I think we share that. It's like we say, we bring that back to the community and let them know that, you know, we know you're married. We didn't know the amount of time. We can take that back to the community and tell them that bring Mary down along. We won't invite them to the birthday party, but we'll just take it. We'll enjoy it.
The one thing that I am proud of, I'll show you, is there are some people in our community there. See, we talk to our grandchildren a lot, Roseburg and I, about respect, not only for just elders, but for everyone. To watch their manners and all that. And they do. And we get a lot of compliments about that. They tell us that they wish all the other kids were like that. We're like our grandchildren that have the respect for elders. And when we tell them about elders, it's not anybody just like Dad and I. It's anyone that's mother, father, uncles, aunts, and all that. And to watch over the little ones. And to always keep an eye on the little ones, and to respect people that are older than you, and always to respect your peers. And they do that. And then we get a lot of compliments about they wish all the kids were like our grandchildren. That makes me feel good. It makes me feel good too. What do you say?
You talk about working together. We got a family gathering coming up on the second Sunday of August. Talk about the problems we're having on our reserve. And my two cousins are coming over to see if they can be of some assistance. Chief Andy Thomas, he's my cousin from my dad's side of the family. Chief Bob Salis is my cousin from my grandmother's side of the family. So they're going to be out there to see what they can do to support us. I mean, that's a little help to get through the Department of Indian Affairs in a way. Yeah.
I think I can say that probably everybody in this room and people who aren't here who are also eager to assist and accompany and aid in any way that we can, given what we do in our jobs and our interests and skills and talents. And I want you to, I know we don't know each other very well personally, but you know him well. And I would just like to remind you that this is an applied research university. We are here to graduate students who know how to do things, who know how to look at problems and innovate and come up with solutions. We're all here to actually do research that makes a positive difference in the world. And even in less formal context, I think everybody I've met who works at this place are people who want to make the world a better place, and we're all very concerned about the damage done to traditional knowledge by colonization. To be part of healing that would be great, not just for First Nations people, but for settler people too. And so when you have that gathering on the weekend, the second weekend of August, do keep in mind that if you come up with some ideas or some defined problems that you would like then to do some brainstorming with people here in this circle about possible ways we can contribute, getting funding, doing a research project around that funding, all kinds of things. Mary, you know more about what's out there than I do. But this is why the group is forming. This is why we're starting this learning community called Tse Tsa Watle, just to come together in interdependence, to help each other, have better working relationships, and to have those relationships so that we can get some things done and clean up some of the mess that has been made. And if you're open to that assistance or that ear or that kind of alliance, I guess alliance is probably a good word for this, partnerships and things. I know there's many people here and groups of people here who would be willing to be part of that and excited to be part of that. But Greg, I'll let you be the, that sounds like a family community meeting, probably not a good idea for me, but maybe you could keep us apprised of any opportunities or ways that you think the Tse Tsa Watle learning community could be in existence. And Wendy and I would like to come out and talk to you about the storytelling idea, the digital storytelling idea that I discussed with, was it Damien and Taylor?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were a little bit excited, weren't they? So this is just a beginning place. It's great, so great that you came and spoke with us today, and I'm so grateful to you for just your transparency and your ability to encapsulate whole life in like, you know, in a short 15 to 20 minutes. Talk about where you're at. Well, this will not be the end of it. We will continue. For now, I'd like to offer you our thanks in the form of honorarium checks. We really value the time you took out of your lives to come. And we hope this won't be the last we see of you. We hope it's just the beginning of a good working relationship with not only your family, but with your community. And I know we're going to learn a lot from each other. Like you say, we never stop, do we?
Well, we won't travel any time next time we come around.
It all worked out really well. Any other parting comments? Ready to go.
Well, I just wanted to, when you talk about relationships with everyone, and you know, although Bert and I talk about the problems that we had growing up, and I know it also happened in your growing up years, because I've met quite a few people that grew up in orphanages that were also abused. So it's not only us that were, well, with us it was assimilation, but with some of the other nationalities it was just abuse. And so we have to think of them too. You know, we can't just be thinking of ourselves all the time, because there's a lot of people that had a lot of problems all over the world. And like you're talking about making this a better place to live in, and some people think, well, I can't just me. But you know, what I was taught when I was growing up, that even though you're just one person, for an example, if you take one little pebble, you throw it in water, and it ripples. And that water touches a lot of different beaches and everything. And that's the way with us. The way we conduct ourselves in our life, we don't just affect just right here. We affect a lot of people. We ripple around. Just one person. And although you probably don't think you're making a big change, if you have changed and helped one person, that's a lot. That means a lot to that one person. And that one person will pass the word on. And that goes on and on and on. And maybe that one person you helped another person, so you started a ripple. It goes round and round and round. And that's what we're trying to do.
We've lost Greg. Phil, would you like to say something before we go?
I just want to pick up on what you're talking about in terms of the ripple and language and young people. I think that Royal Roads is at a critical point in its academic history. There's no other university in the region, southwestern British Columbia, that has someone who is actually Coast Salish, who actually speaks the language, who actually understands our traditions. The neighbors, UVic, VIU, they don't have anybody in a senior position who can speak the language. Two things need to occur. I think that I would like VIU to think of several things is what I have to be very careful. You know, in terms of the language, it would be wonderful for VIU to, our
Root.
double R, for this series or for his website to speak in our language. And so that potential students and faculty can hear Greg speaking the ancestors' language. And when this series is shown for Greg to speak about that, even if he talks about how he's related, imagine what potential students would hear when they open up the website and hear Greg speaking about our language and have it translated. It's going to be a powerful message to academics and the families to know that this is a real language. The language is old, it's 10,000 years old. And also to reinforce the importance of the language. If RU is going to look at programs, it should also strongly consider, if you're going to develop a program you can't, I say this with great respect, you can't just go out and have our young people videotaping others. You've got to reinforce the language, the stories of the old people of So'ela first, and then you have young people learning and taping these short stories, so that they learn the language, they learn about village sites, they learn about relationships, how Greg and these wonderful people are related. That could be taped. So you're reinforcing the language, you're reinforcing relationships, you're reinforcing why you have to be good to your relatives on that exercise. Finally, it would be wonderful for this institution as it moves along to set up a program, an academic program so that we have our own people coming through the system whose part and parcel of their teaching is learning the language. Learning the language as part of their academic work. So that we can't just have people come in and gain immensely from that knowledge and go away. That's what collaboration is all about. That's what we learned from his dear father for the 13 years that we saw him praying, talking at the University of Victoria. He taught us about including others and working together. Not just the one day or the 2 days, but every day. That's the gift that he left. That wonderful. That's something that I think could be, you know, when the young people who are coming here hear that voice, or hear your voice, in the language, even if they don't understand it, they're going to start startled and really pay attention and listen. Because we have far too many people, of our own people, who become like the Politum and very selfish when they get into elected positions and forget about helping. And we don't see that in our own longhouses, or the Shaker Church or the big house or the speakers. We don't see that kind of selfishness. That's all. I had to fill in great because they were looking for you.
Were they?
They were.
They knew you were.
And even though I talked too much at the beginning.
Thanks for filling in.
Stand by, let's take it.
That's a mic. That's a microphone. we didn't even get a chance to, I don't even know where that sheet is. We're supposed to get you to sign something to see if it was okay for you to do that. But we obviously thought that you agreed, so we didn't get you to put your...
Do we still have the sheet? You're supposed to have the sheet.
I'm gonna tell. She says, can you get, I'm gonna be late. Can you get out there and wait? She gets here, she says, give them a parking pass. Here, and then she says, here's the consent form, you have to do that. I said, hey, who's doing all this? So, well, that's okay, it's nice. I was watching and saying, waving at everybody as they're going by. Wait, it's my turn. It's my turn. So anyway, everybody that was saying hello, you know, I just got back from holidays today. And I thought, well, how exciting. We got everyone coming in, and then we were rushing around, and we were in my office, out, we were watching things come back. We went on the phone, we went done all this, and I was just thinking about that consent form. Oh no, they'll agree. We'll give them to sign it later. I think it's still in my office.
We'll take care of that. I think we should let people go now, though,
yes.
For this time, but everybody's welcome back next month. I'm not sure who we're having, but we're hoping it's either...
Daniel Sam?
To talk about the Indian
Shimala.
Church.
Yeah. Maybe just
As long as it's not a Wednesday again, because I have to be in Circuit on Wednesdays. I'm helping them down there decipher stories into First Nation language.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
If you're keen to come back for the next, usually we have these on Wednesdays, but we could reschedule. Does anybody have a problem with a not Wednesday? Okay. Tuesday's okay? Yeah, I'm teaching on Monday, so I'd like to be here. But for me, Tuesdays and Thursdays would work too. We'd love to have you come, Lee and Bert. And I'm just imagining now wonderful videos that are spoken in the language, but with some funding for me to translate everything into subtitles. That could be, you know, when you rent a movie, you can choose to listen to it in French or English with subtitles. I think that would be a really powerful thing to do. You're going to have to live till you're at least 100 now, because well, we'll leave that for another day and a little bit of fun this summer.
Yeah, I have to go on
them yesterday and tell them that I couldn't be there today.
Yes,
Because
yes.
we promised you.
We can adjust, we can
That
adjust.
we'd be here.
Yeah.
Good, Heidi. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.
Nicholas, I hope you come back. Wonderful.
Yeah.
In fact, it'd be nice if you could speak a little bit more at length about what you feel is doing in. Yeah, we'd love that. Okay, everyone, time to go get nourished and watered and all the things that you do after the meeting, and I really, really, really thank you for coming. It's starting to come together. We're driving all that way down.